So is telecommuting and remote working actually easier than working in an office? Well, I've been working remote telecommuting for various amounts of times at my last few jobs for almost 8 years now, since about 2012. And when I look back at the perception I had before starting to work that way, the various jobs I've had, and think about what my friends and family thought about it, the general idea was that it was going to be awesome, that it was going to be really convenient, that is just going to make my life easier. And a lot of things, in my life and for work did become easier, but it wasn't across the board and it wasn't automatic. All right. Being able to telecommute, it's nice because you get more options for balancing work and life and family life. I spend less time driving around, commuting to places, which I think is really great. Some folks don't really have that choice if they're kind of a road warrior out, doing trips to clients or potential sales and that sort of thing. But being able to do more of that if possible, through Zoom meetings and virtually is great. If you have kids and, maybe a kid gets sick or your spouse gets sick or maybe even your car breaks down, having more flexibility to handle all that is really important and that's really valuable. But is it always easier? Well, there's two sides to that coin. Collaborating with your company team, that can be more difficult. If you're used to being able to just get up and walk over to somebody's desk and ask them a question, well, you can't do that anymore necessarily. Communication in general is going to be more difficult. And if there is a travel component still, it's going to feel more jarring, if you get used to working from home or wherever you are all the time. And now all of a sudden, if you're, have to go for a week to go stay somewhere else, to meet up with a team in person, or maybe, one day out of a week or 1 week out of a month, that feels like a big change. If you're always there near the headquarters, you don't have to think about that sort of thing. And, maybe working out of places that aren't so comfortable if it's fully remote. There's this kind of idea that, people working out of Starbucks is this great new thing, but it's not really as great as you might think. With all the music going and random people milling around, and if you have to go to the restroom and you got to pack up all your stuff and maybe you come back and leave your spot, it's kind of annoying actually. And unless you're not really doing any kind of serious work, maybe it's all right. But if you're trying to do calls, phone calls, that sort of thing, no thanks. I want a quiet office somewhere, that I have more control over the environment. So that can be something that you have to deal with in that case. But the big one still, it's work and life balance. It's not an automatic thing, because what you notice when you start working like this more and more over time, the two start really melding together, especially if you work from home. Because now there's very little distinction or separation from I'm working and now I'm with my family, or now it's life, right? Some email comes up. Oh, I can just go down to my office and go take a look and address it. All of a sudden you're in this kind of place where you get up and you start working and you take care of your kids and you're back to working and you go have some lunch, but you're still working. It never really stops unless you're mindful of it and you make a disconnect so that you can keep those different parts of your life compartmentalized. Otherwise, you feel like you're never really living, you're always working, even if it doesn't have to be that way. But that really comes down to the mindset, right? And not expecting that it's going to necessarily be easier. It can be great. There's perks and there's pros and cons for all those different things. It really just comes down to, if you want to be successful doing it, you got to have the right perspective.